Good morning, students. Today we are going to start a new topic, that is respiration in plants. Respiration is one of the catabolic process controlled by various enzymes. Respiration involves in a series of reactions as a step by step. Respiration process is a common process in all the living organisms except viruses. Bacteria have the respiration, plant species have the respiration, animals also have the respiration. In eukaryotic cells, respiration takes place in mitochondria as well as cytoplasm of a cell. In prokaryotic cells, respiration takes place in cytoplasm of a cell. But respiration is a common process in every living organism. Then respiration is defined as the exudation of food materials. Otherwise, we can call it as an exudation of biomolecules like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and organic acids. These substances, also called as respiratory substrates, the chemical substance which undergoes the process of respiration for the production of energy is called as respiratory substrates. The respiratory substrates are nothing but the molecules which are going for exudation, like carbohydrates, proteins, fats, and organic acids. These raw materials are used for the production of energy by following series of reactions like glycolysis, Krebs cycle, electron transport. Now we can try to understand the importance of respiration. Then respiration is important for all the living organisms, especially to synthesis of ATP. That ATP is going to use for various functions. Then one of this important function is this is used for the formation of biomolecules. Biomolecules like DNA, RNA, then here proteins, amino acids, then here glycerols, so on materials have been synthesized. Then second point is absorption of minerals from other cells, means one cell to another cell, some minerals have been transporting. Absorption is possible. The third point is osmotic work. You know the osmotic pressure, osmotic concentration. Molecules moves from low concentration to high concentration. Along with its one growth and development. Then every organism have been growing as well as development have been takes place in the lifetime. Every organism starts their life from single cell, that is a zygote. But they have to grow as a multicellular as well as grown in the maximum. Take the example of human. They can grow in the first 14 years of time, and they can be developed as physical as well as psychological. Plants also can growing from seed germination, it's become a plant and tree. Then along with its one cell divisions, you know that mitotic as well as meiosis cell division. For the cell divisions also, then ATP form of energy is required. Then mitotic cell division is continuous from birth to death of this organism, but meiosis cell division is takes place at the time of reproduction, that is sexual reproduction, and these are the following functions takes place only by ATP. That ATP production is possible only by respiration. This is that process, these activities takes place in plants as well as in animals. There is a few more importance of energy consumption in animal species. Then one of these most important life process is nerve conduction. The messages are carried from one organs to one other organ, or else brain to organs and organs to brain. This message is carried in the form of nerve impulses. To do the nerve impulses, ATP form of energy is required. Thus, one more is an overcoming genotrophy. Genotrophy in the sense the power to the power we have to face the diseases. Generally, plants and animals are affected by different types of diseases. To overcome the disease, means free from disease, we require some amount of energy, that is nothing but immunal power. The immunal power also gaining through that ATP energy. The ATP is nothing but produced by this respiration process. Movement and locomotion. Movement in the sense a particular organ is moving from one point to another point, but locomotion, displacement of animals. The locomotion moving from one place to another place for the sake of food, water, and mating, so on process. Then also heat form of energy. Every animal and plant have the various life processes. To do the various life processes, different types of enzymes are required. The enzymes are activated in the presence of energy, that is heat form of energy. So the various activities takes place with the help of respiration. we can see that how plants breathe by. In the plant species, gas transportation does not take place because of they don't have any particular gas transport system. Gas can diffuses from one cell to another, but transportation does not take place. But in the plant cells, every in the plant species, every part of a plant responsible to take atmospheric oxygen to do the respiration. Then in the leaf, there is a stomata are present. The stomatas helps for absorption of oxygen to do the respiration. In the stem portion, lenticels. The lenticels are nothing but some damaged surface. This topic you was studied in the morphology of flowering plants. The lenticels have that only small porous, which is supported by healthy cells only for absorption of oxygen. Then in the root part, root hair cells are present. They use to absorption of water, mineral, and also some amount of gases are taken by the root cells from the root. We can try to understand that animals have the specialized organs for breathing. It's nothing but respiratory organs. Lungs are the respiratory organs, nothing but breathing organs, like in terrestrial animals, like human and reptiles, aves. Gills are the breathing organs, like in aquatic animals, like example fishes. Skin is a breathing organ, a respiratory organ, like in moist living animal species, like earthworm and frog, along with its tracheal system is present in arthropoda. In animal species, a specialized breathing organs or respiratory organs are present. These organs used to take oxygen and releasing carbon dioxide. The taken oxygen has to supply to each and every part of the body, but in plant species, no specific organs are present. In plant species, the gas exchanges, leaf stomata are used, for stem lenticels are used, for root portion, root hair cells are used for diffusion, for taking of oxygen and as well as for releasing of carbon dioxide. This question was asked in the past as a match the following: lenticels, stomata, as well as root hair cells, and they given that find out that match the correct option. Lenticels, a small porous or injured surface of a stem by which oxygen is taken inside and carbon dioxide is released outside. You know the stomata is a porous, kidney shaped, used for diffusion of gases, but in the stem region, the amount of oxygen required is less. The less amount of oxygen is taken by lenticels. We can try to understand the difference between the respiration and combustion. Then respiration in the sense exhalation of food. It is combustion in the sense it is also similar to oxidation, but it is burning of an object. Then burning of a paper, burning up a fuel, something to be burnt. Then what is the difference and similarity between these two processes? We can try to understand. The first one is respiration. It occurs in living cells like in animals, plants, microorganisms, except in viruses. Combustion, it is occurs in non-living or non-cellular, means there is no systematic life process is required for the combustion, like a burning of fuel at the time of bike riding, car drive. Then second one is under the respiration, oxidation of food materials. We discussed already. By this oxidation of food materials, especially glucose to carbon dioxide and water is called as respiration. But in the combustion, when the sugar burns, carbon dioxide and water are produced and energy is released as a heat. This process is called as a combustion. Then in that respiration, glucose is converted into carbon dioxide and water. Energy is produced, that is in the form of ATP, and some amount of energy is produced in the form of heat. Heat energy which is used for various metabolic activities, for activation of enzymes, To do that process very systematic, some amount of heat is required within the body. But in the combustion, same glucose undergoes to burning, but carbon dioxide and water is produced, but energy is produced only in the form of heat, not in the form of ATP. Then third one is oxidation of sugar molecules occurs at the body temperature of an organism, but in this combustion that heat to be applied for the sugar molecules to burn, means in the respiration some amount of energy is required to start the respiration process like a glycolysis. In the combustion also some amount of energy is required to start the burning of some object. Take the example of to fire a paper we need a match strip. When we use a match strip, single strip, we can make very big fire. But in the respiration, to start the glycolysis, then two ATPs are used. Then after, the large amount of energy is produced. There is a similarity in between these two. Then fourth one is the energy is released in the several stages, like glycolysis, ATP form of energy is released, and NADP, NADH2 form of energy released, and in the electron transport NADH2 converts into ATP. So various in the various stages various forms of energy is produced, but in the combustion energy is released at once, that is only in the heat form. In the fifth one is several intermediates are formed. In the respiration, then glucose undergoes to series of reactions, then followed by glycolysis and Krebs cycle, electron transport. In the glycolysis, glucose converts into glucose 6 phosphate. Glucose 6 phosphate converts into fructose 6 phosphate. There is some intermediates have been formed, pyruvic acid, so on. But in the combustion, there is no intermediates are formed. Directly, that something raw material converts into ash. At last, it converts into ash. Then here, then sixth one is energies. Enzymes are required for the oxidation. In the series of glycolysis Krebs cycle, various enzymes have been used to do the process. But in the combustion, enzymes are not at all required. In the respiration, respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen as well as in the presence of oxygen. But in the water, respiration occurs in the presence of oxygen as well as water. But in the combustion, takes place in the presence of only oxygen, what is not at all required. But what is end product of combustion? There is a few. Now we can try to understand then types of respiration. There are two types of respiration, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. Aerobic respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the absence of oxygen. There is a few differences in between aerobic and anaerobic. We can see that one by one as differences. Aerobic respiration, the first difference is it occurs in all living cells of higher organisms. Higher organisms like plants as well as animals. Not only in the particular cell, in every cell of an animal and in every cell of a plant, aerobic respiration takes place. The respiration takes place within the mitochondria by following the glycolysis, Krebs cycle, and electron transport, as well as TCA cycles. Then here anaerobic respiration, it occurs yeast and some bacteria. Means yeast is a fungi. They also have that anaerobic respiration. There are some bacteria. Most of the bacteria have that only anaerobic respiration. The second difference is it requires oxygen for breaking the respiratory substrate. Then under this anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not required for the breaking the respiratory substrate. In the both organisms, the respiratory substrate is glucose as usual, but oxygen is necessary for aerobic. For anaerobic, oxygen is not necessary. For third difference is the end product of aerobic respiration, carbon dioxide and water along with energy. Then under the anaerobic respiration, the end products are carbon dioxide, alcohol or lactic acid. In the sense, carbon dioxide is a common end product along with alcohol, but when the lactic acid is produced, then carbon dioxide is not at all released out. Then fourth difference is oxidation of one molecule of glucose produces 36 ATP molecules. As per old textbook, 38 ATP molecules are given, but as per modified textbook, only 36 ATP molecules are produced at the end of this aerobic respiration. Under the anaerobic respiration, only two molecules of ATPs are produced. Two ATP molecules are produced, means very less amount of energy is produced at end of this anaerobic respiration. The fifth difference is it consists of four stages under the aerobic respiration. The first stage is called glycolysis. Second one is a link reaction. Link reaction in the sense that is in between glycolysis and Krebs cycle. The third stage is TCA cycle, tricarboxylic acid cycle. Then the fourth one is electron transport chain. But in the anaerobic respiration, it consists of only two stages. One is a glycolysis and fermentation. Under the aerobic respiration, it is in these stages takes place in the cytoplasm as well as mitochondria. Glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm. The link reaction takes place in between mitochondria and cytoplasm. But TCA cycle takes place in matrix of mitochondria. Electron transport takes place in inner membrane of mitochondria. Means both are important for aerobic respiration. But for anaerobic respiration, fermentation as well as glycolysis takes place within only cytoplasm of a cell. From this chart, there were few questions were asked in the previous NEET typical NEET exam. The number of ATP molecules are produced at end of this anaerobic respiration. The options are given as 36 ATP, 38 ATP, 2 ATPs, and then something 12 ATPs. So given option is as a 2 ATPs. And also the question was asked in the previous, which of the following is correct match? They given the stages of aerobic respiration and the location occurs in its. You can see very brief few more points about the difference between anaerobic and aerobic respiration. Under the anaerobic respiration, oxygen is not required, no oxygen is required. But under the aerobic respiration, oxygen is required. Okay, fine. But under the anaerobic respiration, there is a two stages are given here. Glycolysis is the first, second one is fermentation. Under the glycolysis takes place in the cytoplasm of a cell given in the bracket. The fermentation takes place in the cytoplasm of a cell in the same site. Glycolysis, fermentation 2 takes place, which are the important stages of anaerobic respiration. Under the fermentation, two types of fermentations are there. One is the alcoholic fermentation, second one is lactic acid fermentation, which we are already discussed very brief. Alcoholic fermentation takes place in yeast cells. Lactic acid fermentation takes place in lactic acid bacteria as well as in human cough muscle cells due to lack of oxygen. At the end of this anaerobic respiration, 2 ATP molecules are produced for every 1 glucose. Very less amount of energy is produced. We can see the aerobic respiration, oxygen is not required. There is a 3 stages are there: glycolysis, Krebs cycle, electron transport. But before the Krebs cycle, there is a small reactions are going on called as an linking reactions. Glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm of a cell. Krebs cycle takes place in mitochondria, especially matrix of mitochondria. Electron transport takes place in mitochondria, in the cristae of mitochondria. Inner fold have that inner membrane of mitochondria have a small folds called as an cristae, and the cristae electron particles are present. In the electron particles, electron transport takes place. By the electron transport, NADH2 converts into ATP. At the end of this process, 36 ATPs are produced for every 1 glucose molecule. The 2 ATPs are produced for every 1 glucose under the anaerobic respiration. Now we can try to understand that anaerobic respiration, the process of anaerobic respiration. Anaerobic respiration takes place in the yeast, fungi as well as bacteria like a lactic acid bacteria. This anaerobic respiration consists of two stages. One is a glycolysis as well as fermentation. Glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm of a cell. Fermentation also takes place in the cytoplasm of a cell. In the glycolysis process, the 1 moles of glucose converts into 2 moles of pyruvic acids. The glucose undergoes a series of reactions. Glucose converts into glucose 6-phosphate. Glucose 6-phosphate converts into fructose 6-phosphate. Fructose 6-phosphate converts into fructose 1,6-biphosphate. It is splitting as dihydroxyacetone phosphate, which is consists of 3 carbon as well as 3 carbon compound of glyceraldehyde 3-phosphate. Dihydroxyacetone phosphate also converts into glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate, which is consists of 3 carbon. The glyceraldehyde 3 phosphate undergoes to series of reactions to form as an 2 pyruvic acid. Means one glucose molecule converts into 2 pyruvic acids. Glucose consists of 6 carbon, but each pyruvic acid consists of only 3 carbon. In the series of reaction, 2 ATPs are utilized in the beginning, but 4 ATPs are produced. Means 4 ATPs are profit, then 2 ATPs are consumed, 4 minus 2, 2 ATPs are net gained, profit, overall profit. In this glycolysis, glucose to pyruvic acid, 2 NADH, 2 NAD plus is going to use and make as an 2 NADH plus, it's a form of energy. At the end of the glycolysis, 2 pyruvic acids are formed. Each one consists of 3 carbon. This pyruvic acid undergoes to fermentation based on the type of cell in which they present, based on the type of enzymes availability. That pyruvic acid undergoes to series of reactions by the two. One is an alcoholic fermentation like in the yeast cell. The second type is lactic acid fermentation like in the lactic acid bacteria. In the alcoholic fermentation, the pyruvic acid is converts into then two ethyl alcohols or ethanol along with carbon dioxide. This conversion is takes place in the presence of alcoholic dehydrogenase enzyme. This question was asked in the past. Which enzyme is used here? Alcohol dehydrogenase. This conversion also takes place with in the presence of energy consumption, that is NADH to NADH plus is converts into 2 NAD plus. Actually 2 NADH plus going to use in the electron transport to produce ATP, but in this anaerobic respiration electron transport does not take place, but the energy which is produced in the form of NADH plus going to utilize within this fermentation process. Hence only glycolysis fermentation two stages are present, electron transport is not at all required. In some lactic acid bacteria as well as in calf muscle cells, inadequate means insufficient oxygen whenever we have in the muscle cells, the lactic acid fermentation is takes place. The 2 pyruvic acids converts into 2 lactic acids, carbon dioxide is not produced. Each lactic acid consists of 3 carbons, but in the ethyl alcohols each one consists of only 2 carbon, but one carbon dioxide comes, one carbon is comes in the form of carbon dioxide. In the lactic acid fermentation, we can try to understand that structure of mitochondria which was present in eukaryotic cells. In the prokaryotic cells, mitochondria is absent. This mitochondria is also called as a powerhouse of the cell. The mitochondria is a double membranous organelle, outer membrane as well as inner membrane. Outer membrane is a smooth, the inner membrane is roughly have inner folds. In between two membranes, there is a membranial space is present. The inner membrane have the some folds called as an cristae. Within the mitochondria, there is a double-stranded circular DNA is present. 70S ribosomes are present. It consists of matrix within the mitochondria. This mitochondria is suitable for respiration, that is aerobic respiration. It is also consists of granules, ribosomes, 70S type of ribosomes. In this mitochondria, you know that stages of respiration under the aerobic respiration consists of 3 phases. One is a glycolysis, then Krebs cycle, electron transport. In between glycolysis and Krebs cycle, there is a linking reactions are there. Glycolysis takes place in cytoplasm of a cell, in the sense out of mitochondria. That's why glycolysis is a common process in both aerobic and anaerobic. Then linking reactions takes place in between cytoplasm and mitochondria. After some reactions, the materials comes into the matrix of mitochondria. Then glycolysis takes place in the matrix of mitochondria. The electron transport takes place in inner folds of mitochondria. This question was asked. Where does glycolysis takes place? In the matrix of mitochondria. In 2019 question paper, electron transport is takes place. The options are given as outer membrane, then intramembranal space, and inner membrane of mitochondria. But the option is correct one is inner membrane of mitochondria. How the folds called as a cristae, and the cristae electron particles are present. In the electron particles, enzymes are present. Due to these enzymes, electron transport is going to takes place. So electron transport takes place in inner membrane of mitochondria. So this question was asked from the previous NEET question. So this structure you all already studied in the cell biology as a part of cell organelles. It is also called as powerhouse of the cell. This is a structure of ATP. The ATP full form is adenosine triphosphate. The adenosine triphosphate, then biological form of energy, stores in the body, which is used to do the various activities. In this structure, there is a three important components are present. It is called as an nucleotide. It consists of three main constituents. The one is an nitrogen base, is called as an adenine. The second one is 5 carbon sugar compound called as an ribose. The third one is 3 inorganic phosphate groups. With this combination of 3, there is a nucleotide is constructed, which is acting as biological form of energy. In this structure, 3 inorganic phosphates is binding to the ribose and adenine called as an adenosine triphosphate. The terminal phosphate consists of greater amount of energy. When the terminal phosphate is releasing from 3 inorganic phosphates, it is called as adenosine diphosphate. You are able to see this picture: phosphate, phosphate, ribose plus adenine. Very clear diagram. This diagrammatical information shows that 3 inorganic phosphates are attached to the ribose. By removal of the terminal phosphate, when the two phosphates are present with the ribose and adenine, is called as adenosine diphosphate. If the two phosphates are removed, only one phosphate is attached to the ribose plus adenine, called as adenosine monophosphate. You are able to look at the diagram. In this diagram, there are three phosphates are attached to the ribose along with adenine. When the terminal phosphate is removed, the amount of energy is produced going to use to do the various activities. Without terminal phosphate, two phosphates with ribose adenine is called as adenosine diphosphate. Sometimes diphosphate, out of two phosphates, one phosphate also removing from that first phosphate. Then when only one phosphate is attached to the ribose and adenine, is called as adenosine monophosphate. Adenosine monophosphate is became adenosine diphosphate. Adenosine diphosphate became adenosine triphosphate. Means adenosine triphosphate became adenosine diphosphate. Adenosine diphosphate became adenosine triphosphate. Means by addition of inorganic phosphates, ATP became ADP, ADP became AMP. By removal of inorganic phosphate, by addition of phosphate, AMP became ADP, ADP became ATP. So ATP adenosine triphosphate, ADP adenosine diphosphate, AMP adenosine monophosphate.